Well, welcome to a series of interviews we're doing with industry specialists. My name is Gaetan Babin, and I'm the president and CEO of the Canadian Resort and Travel Association, also known as CRTA. Today's topic will be how our industry is shifting from a sales first mindset to an engagement first mindset. And we are extremely excited to have as our first guest I call him a young man compared to who I am, but a young man within the industry for a couple of decades still that has found a shift into this industry and has found kind of a solution for it. So we're thrilled to welcome Jonathan Stoker, president of the VOA, or Vacation Ownership Advisor. Jonathan, welcome.
Gaetan, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me here today. And I look forward to our discussions, talking about the industry, talking about, challenges, the positivity of the industry, and everything else from member engagement to customer service.
Well, welcome to Vancouver, Canada to start with. I know it's not exactly Las Vegas, but it's a beautiful city and it's good to have you in our country. I very much remember meeting you. I believe it was 4 or 5 years ago. And even though in my position you get to meet a lot of new people that are coming in with ideas and whatnot, you really stuck to me. You came up with something that just kind of really caught my attention. But you remember that day when we first met?
I do. I remember it as if it was yesterday. The GNX conference in Miami. And it's something that I looked forward to for about a year, to be able to speak with industry leaders like yourself and so many others that attend these conferences. And, walking up to you that day and being able to share my idea, my vision that I had about helping what I felt was a disconnect, a void in the industry and post-sale. And then hearing your feedback and developing that relationship over time and being able to talk to you was great. And I believe that now it's established into not only a great business relationship but also a friendship. And I truly appreciate everything that you're doing for the industry.
Well, it's because of people like you that the industry is changing. I think what caught me the most, and I'd like you to expand on that a little bit, is you had a portfolio which you were some kind of manual and whatnot, and you were talking to different people. But the idea stuck to me as you said, we are great at selling our product. We are great at designing our product. The product is evolving. The marketing has evolved, and we know we're catching this new generation. But we're not that good after sales. And immediately I said, you're correct, because a lot of people leave with the program, get back home 1, 2, 3 days later. What exactly did we buy? And you found a hole there, and you thought there might be a business model that could be followed with that. So why don't you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. Vacation Ownership Advisor, VOA, was developed after years of sitting on tables and speaking to clients and hearing consistent feedback. I would buy more, or I would add on. I would buy more, but I don't want to add on because of my maintenance fee, or they really just didn't understand, or they were promised that they would have a callback from the person that they purchased with. And I think there's challenges. These systems that we call them now, right? Vacation ownership points, weeks, they're complex. I mean, those of us that have been in the industry for years, we're still learning every single day. And we're expecting a member, or we call it a family, that comes in who has a 9-to-5 job. They have kids at home. They're going to soccer games. They're making dinners at home. And we're asking them to capture all that knowledge in a 90-minute to 2-hour presentation, spend $20,000 or $30,000, and then get an email with login credentials, and then call and try to figure it out. And I think that's where the gap is that we just need stronger post-sale experience for members and proactive.
Well, when the industry, you touched on the industry when it started. I know myself in my just about 3 decades of being in the industry, we started with a product that was as easy as you buy a week, you use your week, or you can exchange your week through one of the exchange companies.
Right.
Then the point system came over, which made it more flexible. It gave it such a like a travel currency, I guess, in some ways. But even the point system at that was very simple. 9,000 points gets you this. If moving forward 2-3 decades later, now the program with airfare, travel, extra hotels, bonus points, carryover, it's complex.
It is.
It's complex. So the new consumer, when they get back home, like you were just referring to, for us to expect them to really understand what they've got, it's kind of
it's a challenge,
it's a
right?
challenge.
It's a challenge for them, and we expect a lot out of them. And our solution is to call them and bring them back on an owner's update. That's our solution, and our solution is, and unfortunately, this happens is. Well, if they learn too much, then they won't want to upgrade, or they'll be really happy with what they have, and they won't see a challenge to be able to upgrade. And we should take the complete opposite approach, because maintenance fees are probably the best thing out there to be able to gauge the value of your ownership. If you're paying $5,000 in maintenance fee, and you get a $10,000 vacation or $15,000 vacation out of it, and you're shown that, you're not just given a reservation and off you go on vacation, but someone sits with you and says, here's what you're paying in maintenance fee. Here's the valuation of what it would cost you if you book this through your hotel brand's website or a third-party company. And how do you feel about your ownership now? And then let me share with you the benefits that come on with that. All of a sudden, when they go back to the presentation a year later and they sit down and they're saying that the maintenance fee is not an objection anymore. The maintenance fee is a plus. And I think that's what we're missing. Like you said, great point. We're great at marketing, we're great at selling, and we're great at creating an owner experience as a owner event. Is something new that obviously we'll talk about. And we're great at retargeting them to come back on in a presentation. But where we're missing the gap, the business model, is proactively reaching out to the client and saying, how are you? How's everything? Is there anything you need? I'd like to go through that select level benefit with you. Schedule some time for a Zoom call. How's your wife doing? Right? Happy anniversary. Those little things it's the human connection. It's not just about the sale. And I think that's where I believe the industry needs to make a shift as a whole. We have to really focus on that part.
Well, like I introduced at the very beginning, that we're shifting from a sales first mindset to an engagement.
Yeah.
Typically, when a customer arrives at a resort, there's usually two lineups. There's non-owners, there's your free gift. It's a sales first mindset because their only goal is by smiling. Very nice and very professional lives. Most resorts are these days, but it's still a sales first mindset.
Right.
Then there's the other line, which is, oh, you're an owner. Well, then we want to do an update. But to call it for what it is, it's still a sales first mindset because their goal is they're going to put them in the room with a salesperson, do a little bit of updating on points, and it's still a sales first mindset. What you were referring to was a call to a customer just on engagement, not even thinking on the sales. Now, a sales may come out of this, but it doesn't necessarily has to be on that date. It could be back when they go back to the resort or
That's
whatnot.
correct. That's correct. And our business model is not to reach out and sell them anything. It's not to call them and tell them they have to pay a maintenance fee or to invite them to another presentation or marketing. It's to strategically develop a relationship with that client over the period of 1 year, 2 years, and 3 years. And we notice the difference in engagement. We notice that they pick up the phone call and they'll actually answer sometimes, and they'll call up and say, oh, is this Michelle? Is this Michael? Is this Jonathan? They get to know your names because we're actually dealing with them on a consistent basis. I think if we were to ask a developer or a sales leader, what is your sales process? They know it A to Z, from the meet and greet all the way down A to Z to the close. If you sit down and say, lay out your post-sale process of what happens for 365 days a year and show me your trigger points and touch points, and we're not talking about dripping emails and a nudge text here and there. What's your actual, your post-sale approach? I don't think there's many out there that truly do it the right way. And
You believe it's more of a reactive versus a proactive?
Definitely. And it's the way the business model is set up. It's not that it's anything that the industry tries to do as a negative. It's just, this is the way the business model is. The business model wasn't designed to be able to reach out proactively to clients and build relationships and bridge the gap between a client who buys a interval international membership and maybe they purchase 105,000 points, which to the random person, as a new owner walking in, they're looking at 105,000. We just view it as a big number. right? And then all of a sudden, that could break into 2 weeks, 1 week. You could exchange. There's all these different, you could use it through hotels this way. How do you use it? And we're here to help that owner go from the resort to interval. That middle gap right there is where VOA sits. And to be able to help that member bridge to go one to the other and then finally to their vacation.
See, I've talked to, obviously, through my career to many resorts, and I've had many mentors, phenomenal mentors that have helped me, guide me. But every time I've talked to them about their owner services, and I say, you have an owner service department? We sure do. What's the process? We handle complaints.
So true.
Yeah, so being proactive. Now, is the shift in the aftermarket sales engagement the direction to go, or do the resorts need to do more at point of sale or follow up at point of sale, or what needs to happen in the industry worldwide to create a better customer experience?
I think it's shifting the business model from customer reactive to customer proactive. It's something that has to be done. I mean, if you look at our industry as a whole, if you look at it from the outside, we're transacting billions of dollars. We're asking a client to come in and trust us because of our brand, because of our history, credibility, other people they've seen online, and to give us $50,000 or $20,000, whatever that number may be that gets them their membership. And in some cases, they may not get a welcome call the next day. Or worse, in 3 weeks, their login credentials come in an email. There's no phone call to even them. Now, there's certain companies out there that do it, to do a great job at it, and I commend them for that. But as an industry, I think that's where we fail. I mean, if you look at the industry as an example, the other day I flew Alaska Airlines to come up here. I'm just using it as an example, right? This could be any airline that you want to talk to. But I got off the plane yesterday. I am not going to get a phone call from Alaska Airlines to say thank you for flying. It's not their business model, right? We understand that. So, but what if someone actually reached out to you because you hit a certain level, something, and you would feel different. You feel special. You feel appreciated. And I think that's where the industry needs to really focus on, is that post-sale customer experience. And even if they're not hiring a third-party company, if they're not doing something like that, set it up in your business model. It will make an impact in your numbers, and it will make an impact in your customer retention and engagement.
So this is with a travel club. So that brings me with another topic, if we don't mind doing a little shift here.
Sure.
You're supposed to be the expert. So travel clubs, you see them come in, you see them leave. That hasn't changed for me since I started in the industry in the late 80s. They come in with a good intention, but a lot of them, the value factor is questionable in some ways. I think today it's shifted, value's better.
Value's there.
But there still seems to be an issue with them staying in business percentage-wise. Is there a reason for that?
I believe there's multiple reasons for it. I think one of the biggest factors is marketing. It's the unknown of how to properly market and the ability to get people in front of you. You know, people talk about qualified and people and everything. If you're blessed enough to be able to sit down and talk to someone who's already traveling, then they're qualified.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they're qualified. They're here in front of you. So I think that the marketing aspect is a challenge for them. And I believe the fact that they are left on their own to figure out how to work that process. And by that, I mean as a white label solution. Right? Most travel clubs are set up as a white label solution, which means they contract a company, and their job is to provide a platform of inventory at a discounted rate in weeks and whatever it may be.
Yep.
You know, and they put a logo on it, and off they go. And that's their business model, right? Now, if you look at that from the outside in, and you look at it and say, well, wow, now this person has to develop a professional website, because if they keep the one that they're given, it looks like a Hotmail account. And that's the reality, right? It's a login. There's no two-factor authentication. Anybody can log in from anywhere in the world, right? And this is a billion-dollar industry that we're talking about, right? They're left to find their own payment processor, right, to run their own. They're left to do their own social media and create their brand. They're left to find who's going to do the welcome calls, Who's going to follow up? Who's going to fight chargebacks? Who's going to handle member complaints? And the list goes on. So how does that entrepreneur or that person who's focused on building a business, who doesn't know how to do social media, doesn't know how to build websites, now he has to develop a sales process, and all of these moving parts going behind. And what happens is they end up misrepresenting brands. You have some of the biggest players out there: Arivia, RSI, RCI, Vacation Innovations, Inspira, and others that are out there. And they do an incredible job at their business model, which is providing a white label solution. Mm-hmm. But when Bob gets a white label and Bob goes out and does a presentation in front of 30 people at the Holiday Inn or a Marriott Courtyard, Bob turns around and says, "We're Arivia, we're RCI, we have 1 million owners," which is a false statement. They should be presenting it the other way, but they can't because they have no credibility, because they just opened up last week. Yeah. Even though their intentions are good, right? They want to sell, they're doing the right thing. And that's where the issue happens, right there. And all of a sudden, the bad rap, if anything happens, goes to Arivia, RSI. They end up getting the complaints, the attorney generals. And it spirals and spirals. And you could go on, there's no vetting. We have to think about this for a second. We're in an industry where you can contact a white label provider and have a company built within some as fast as 3 days, contracts and your label up. Some may take 3 weeks, and nobody's checked your background. Nobody knows if you've committed fraud before. No one knows if you're financially capable to even launch a marketing campaign. And the issues continue. But that's...
Well, associations, aside from dealing with legislations and whatnot, is still there to protect the consumer at the end of the day. That's what our real job is. And I look at what we call partners and affiliates of ours. We obviously work very closely with ARDA, which is the American Resort Association, with AMDATOUR, which is the Mexican National Association, and ACOTOUR, which does basically the Yucatan Peninsula. And what we have in common is we wanted to be able to, by protecting the consumer, I suppose, we want to be able to promote, engage the good players in the industry that are consumer focused and engagement focused versus sales first. The sales happen when you get a happy customer, but I think there's been a shift in the consumer of today versus the ones when we first started, which was like the baby boomers, which some of us are still alive, thank God. But the baby boomer were very loyal to a brand, very loyal to a set travel. I mean, my father was a liberal, and it could have been Porky Pig in charge of the department as far as the president-elect. I'm a liberal to the end of. But today, the consumer's a lot smarter. They're wiser. And if you looked at the old traditional product, which is you own a week, you own it for a lifetime, this is your week, and you can pass it on to your kids and your grandkids and so forth, versus the model of a travel club, which is basically not inventory based, and it's just a discount, basically like an online travel agent in some ways, same thing. They're trying to find a middle ground to that. But we're seeing a lot of major players out there, like the big brands, that are, aside from offering their guaranteed week and their resort and whatnot, we talk about the Marriott, Hilton, Wyndham, they also have a platform to assist the members with all their other travel needs. And it's through trying to probably put more engagement into this. So the communication becomes a key factor. Exactly. So our job, I suppose, in trying to unite all these good people together, this good industry together, is something that we take very seriously, obviously. We want to make sure that we promote great companies that are saying, how can we better the industry? And we seem to be focusing more in the last way with our board of director of who's really engaging with the consumer versus who's got the really best sales platform, as a sales first mentality. So there's definitely a shift there. So you've worked with the major brands, and I believe Marriott was your first introduction to the industry, or what was it with your first one?
My first introduction to the industry was actually in Mexico. I did work with Vedanta, in Puerto Vallarta, also Cancun, and then with Hilton in New York City at West 57th, and with Marriott as well.
With Marriott. So you've worked with major brands as a whole. you see a shift because there's been so much merging right now with those major brands taking over small products and whatnot. So the major brands are almost kind of a club, an industry of their own now, versus the smaller little independent. Who needs the most assistance? The big brands seems to have, they feel they know their stuff, and they're maybe more reluctant to do a shift. But there's, like you're just mentioning, a club that starts at the beginning of no clue, except let's sell something that there's a profit to be made. You think this is the one we need, even associations? Do we need to focus more on these clubs and provide them the services and the outlets and the industries that will complement what they're doing, so that they're doing it on a very legit basis, so that it's very transparent? I know the Code of Ethics of the Canadian Association is well known in the industry, here, States and Mexico, as the highest standards when it comes to ethics and transparency. So a lot of resorts out there want to be recognized by CARTA. They put a certificate on their walls and their sales centers saying, we abide by a very, very strong code of ethics. And trust is such a big factor when it comes time to the point of sale. But we're mostly talking about the shifting into that engagement and whatnot. So can associations do anything to maybe promote more engagement versus just sales?
It's a great question. The answer is yes. And obviously, we can all do more. Every company can do more. Individuals, we can all strive to do better. Right now, as I see the associations and I see the resorts themselves, I see it very similar to the United States federal government, or the way most governments work with the federal and the state. I see that you have the associations with work, let's say they're the federal level, and then the resorts are the states. So, for instance, in the United States, you have, in most countries, marijuana is illegal on a federal level. But you can go to Colorado and you could walk in and you could purchase something. So the states do whatever they want, but yet they're regulated by federal rules, right? And then right? It doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense. Yeah. So I think that from an industry perspective, I feel that the associations should have more of an impact into what really goes on the sales floor itself. Because the one thing that I respected so much about you, and really am proud of when I'm a member of CARTA, is your ethics and the way you present yourself in the business and outside of the business. Right? It's something that it always was important to me. And I said to myself, you know what? This is real. This is someone who actually cares, wants to do it the right way, and there's no bullshit, right? As we say, this is real. And we have in our industry, we have individuals, and it's not a large. We have individuals that cross the line in sales, and they pitch unethical sales practices. There are developers that, and I won't say a developer, I will just say that there's sales managers and there's people on the sales floor that know who that individual is. They know what they're pitching, and they let it go because they want the numbers. I tell you this because I've been on the sales floor. It's not something I'm making up, right? And the worst case of it is you have an individual that is a sales leader that goes in and finds out that, hey, this person's doing it unethically. I'm sorry, you're terminated. This is the reason why. And the salesperson goes next door to the next resort, and they show his numbers, and they go, oh, yeah, okay. And they bring him in, and he goes and does the same thing over there. My personal opinion is that I think there should be some type of agreement among the resorts and the associations to where that person is blacklisted or banned in the industry. The same way if you're a pilot and you're caught drinking on the job, you're not going to walk next door to American Airlines to get a job, right? So I think so. And you made a great point about the smaller ones, the travel club part. So you have Marriott, you have Hilton, you have these enormous big brands. If they do a white label, it doesn't matter. It's Marriott.
Yeah.
Right? And Marriott's not going to put their label on something that they don't feel that it's good, right?
Yeah.
And my heart is with Marriott. I love them. All the respect for Hilton and those companies and the way they do their business. Where the struggle comes in is just like you said. It's that new business, that new entrepreneur that wants to do a white label, that wants to do it that way. there's no regulations, right? I mean, if we're being transparent, which we always are, they get a white label agreement from XYZ company. They go out and start selling. No one is monitoring what they are saying on the floor. Nobody. The only thing they're looking for is how many deals did they provide that week.
What's your VPG?
What's your VPG? And were there cancellations? If there's a spike, yes, they'll start to look at it. If there's some negative comments come in, and of course, they don't want to have that. And I get that. But they could have a rental company in there promising they're going to rent their timeshare. The weeks they could do resale. They could sell one price to another person, one price to another person, and just because you're a farmer, you get 10% discount, right? And this is what goes on. And what I don't think the people are seeing in the big picture is this is hurting the white label brand.
It is.
Right? Because all of it goes back to them. Because Bob's Travel Club, you know, those ones that say that fail, that go in, they made couple $100,000, maybe they made less, maybe they lost everything. But the one who's taking the real beating is the client, because they've now put out their hard-earned money, and now they're left with nothing. I mean, I don't mean nothing. I mean, they have, how can I say this? This is exactly what happens, and I can tell you this from I watch it happen. I watch it happen a lot. Travel club opens up, gets a white label solution. They're in business for a year. They go out of business. Now, let's say they have no post-sales support such as VOA behind the scenes. Most of the times, these people are not getting a letter saying, sorry, we're going out of business. Those doors close like that, and they're gone, right? What happens is the white label provider calls them and says, hey, we're going to flip you into our club. And they take them out of their Bob's Travel Club or whatever it might be. They flip them into their own travel club, and they sell them another travel package, or they hit them on a multi-year renewal. But that's the first time that company's ever reached out to that client. They don't even know what's happening because there's nothing that's happened post-sale. There's been no relationship being built. And this is one of the strongest reasons that VOA, this business model, needs to exist, because these people, they don't deserve that. They're trusting an industry, they're trusting a brand, and in the end, no one's there. They're just calling them for an annual renewal.
Well, that's one thing that when I took over as association president, I made it very clear to the existing board that if I took it over, I took it over. And we made a major shift. We rebranded and whatnot. The association's been active since 1980. So, and I remember Gloria Collinson at the very beginning of my career. Through her and another gentleman, a man named Stephen Marks, which both have passed now, obviously. Mm-hmm. When I first got into the industry, about 3 months into it, I talked to our owner of the resort, and I said, listen, I've been in this for 3 months. There's got to be something that regulates how honest and we do business, because what I've seen in operation so far is you can say whatever you want to, and he says, well, there is. It's called the Canadian Resort Association. And I thought, well, when's the next meeting? And he said, well, it's only for presidents and directors, and it's for people that like experience in the business. I says, well, when is the next meeting? He says, well, it's in 2 months from now, and I'm going to be going to Toronto. I said, well, I've been at it for 3 months. In 2 months from now, I'll be an expert. I says, I need to go to this. Yeah. He obviously laughed. He says, it takes years to understand. I says, well, and I insisted to no end to go to that meeting. I did go. I met with Gloria Collinson, and somehow I left an impression, and she said, I got to introduce you to somebody that could be a life changer for you. And she introduced me to the president of RCI at the time in Canada. His name was Stephen Marks. We had a great talk and went on, and I said, I'm a big fan of RCI. I'm a fan of the industry. And he says, why? Is it because, what makes, he said, because I heard a guy at a table once say, if you want to save money, just stay home. He said, but if you want to work out, if you take a gym membership, the odds of you working out is a lot more than if you don't have a gym membership. You don't need a gym membership. But the same thing happens with this timeshare. If you vacation, what I've noticed is if you own a timeshare, you will give your family more experiences and get to do more places and whatnot.
Agreed.
But we have an obligation to show it properly. So Stephen Marks told me, you're going to be part of this business for a long time. He had a feeling I would be, and I didn't know it was going to be 30 years now, but he said, make sure you leave the business in a better shape that you found it. And I'm finding that even 30 years later, even though I'm in a role that I feel I was destined to be in, the perception of the public is still not as positive as I thought it should be by now. A lot of great work has been done. Mm-hmm. I think we have to command companies like Arda, with new leadership that they've got, Jason Gamble, to come up and say, campaigns of I love my timeshare, I love my vacation ownership, and to get the public perception out there. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people now that are very proud of saying, yeah, we do own and we do vacation, we do enjoy it a lot as a whole. But as an association, one thing I committed to is I will not support or endorse as a member anybody that doesn't follow that code of ethics that is extremely transparent. And if there's any issues, like we've got members in Mexico, we've got members in the Caribbean, we've got members in the United States, Canada, everywhere. If there's any issue that comes to us, because my number and our website is all on their certificate, we address them, say, listen, there's been an issue. They contacted us, and if it's not handled to our satisfaction, they could lose their membership with us as a CARTA. So, and I think that's where associations need to be really strong in that area to endorse and not to endorse and not to recognize companies that are, especially like, we will get you out of your timeshare, not a problem. Give us $1,000 and you're out of this thing, which are not ethical. So I see a shift in the major players, but it's easy to be a philanthropist if you got millions and millions of dollars. It's more difficult to spend extra when you're starting a little travel club like this and you're saying, okay, I can get the inventory for, let's say, from Narivia, for an example, and I've got a sales team, so we can sell for X amount of dollars. I can give the commissions. And sales first mindset.
That's correct. Right.
First sales mindset. But the shift is, and I think that's what engaged me to our conversation, and our relationship started developing when you said, sales, we do sales. It's a question of what do we do with that consumer at the end of the day when it's done. So what's the future? Like, you go from engaging with following up with somebody, because I've seen your method of doing it, of calling him on anniversaries. The personal relationships you develop is great, and develop that relationship so that if they want to travel, they will obviously call you and say, listen, that's what we're thinking about doing. But how do you evolve that so that it becomes part of the engagement mindset to a consumer?
Obviously the best way to do it is standardizing practices, across the industry. From our end, we've learned that reaching out to them every 60 days is pretty much our business model. Sometimes it can be 45 days, 60 days is what we're reaching out to talk to them. It's proactive, reaching out, talking to them. As our business model started, the whole entire model was just post-sale. It was more customer service. It was, how can I help you use your product? Just the touch points that went on throughout the year. How can we help explain your maintenance fee, different things like that. And what we noticed is that because we were proactively developing this relationship with the client, they started to contact us for reservations. They trusted us. They worked with us. They knew us. We were the only ones that were calling them. We were the outreach. So then we expanded our model and we started helping members book reservations, whether it was with points, whether it was with, via platform, weeks. We started to learn that business and understand it, understand where the value is, how they're being sold, what is actually making them buy versus what they're actually using. And we've slowly evolved our entire business model now into managing their entire travel portfolio because hotel discounts are overrated, right? I mean, I can go to Expedia right now and 60, 70% of the time beat most of the net rates that are out there because Expedia is a giant, and people don't know that, right? Because Expedia can't advertise it. They're not allowed to by law. They're not allowed to advertise their net rates, right? So when you go to Expedia's front end of their website, You go online and you might see the Maldives sitting there for $15,000, and you think it's great and you book it. But in reality, you could bundle it and you end up getting a cheaper rate that's there. And it's extremely different rate. So it's not really about the discounts. It's about the experience. It's about the service that you're giving them. Taking it farther because we're helping them manage their American Express points, their Hilton Honors, their Marriott Bonvoy points, that whole package. So I think that to your question is we have to provide more. We have to provide more in service. We have to more in relationship, and it has to be more than just a booking experience. It has to be a true relationship experience with the client.
Well, the initial sales process, I'm going back 30 years or 20 years, even 10 years, was own versus rent logo, and you used to do it on a piece of paper, and you show the own versus rent, and you get the hotel room on this side, but look for what you get on the other side, and so forth. It's changed now. There's a shift, the own versus rent to experience.
Right.
And I know some of the resorts that we've stayed at lately. I'm thinking of one of our members in Cancun, and my family and I, my wife and I, and my daughter and boyfriend, we got to experience a true experience level of, as a member, what a member would feel like.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at us and saying, the odds of us being in here without this industry, the cost alone would be beyond. So the experience has become much more a factor now. It seems to be even in the sales process that they really focus on the experience. Even on the marketing side, people like to say, you know what, you got to come up to our resort to stay before you can even consider membership. It seems to be really focused on that. Is that a shift that's throughout the industry, or is that just with the major brands that you're seeing?
It should be a shift throughout the entire industry. The major brands are doing it, and they're doing it well.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the owner event parties that Hilton has, Formula One, you look at Marriott, they do incredible concert events, sporting events, and the sales our positive sales are reflecting because of that. Owners are willing to spend more, right? They're willing to upgrade more to be able to have access to these type of events. I think it's a great thing because it allows them to speak with or sit down and have dinner with, I'm just going to use Marriott as an example. You sit at a dinner table with 10 different presidential owners, and you get to share experiences. And maybe there's someone there that's an executive level owner. Maybe they have 7,000 points as an example, and this family has 10,000 points. They're able to sit there and say, wow, we shared that same experience, but what's it like to be a presidential owner? What is it? We love it. We're here to do that. Maybe there's a reason for us to upgrade and that's what it's about. It's about bringing everybody together, showing them that their membership is extremely valuable, because we all know that the timeshare industry offers extreme value, right? There's no doubt about it. The part that is the challenge is the education part of it, is the outreach, the caring, the showing the value, right? Like sending someone a video to watch and then telling them to come on an owner upgrade, and that's it's nothing, right? It's a burger with no cheese, as they call it, right? It's not special. But the owner experience and doing it, and I think that what's challenging is we'll call it the smaller brands or the travel clubs. They can't compete that way. They don't have the marketing cost to be able to do that. They can't go out and rent out a suite at T-Mobile in Las Vegas for the Knights game, for $30,000. And they got to pre-do these ahead of time. It's not like you're just booking it a week before. Like you are scheduling 20 events in a row, and you're outlaying all that cash in hopes that it returns and it creates the owner's it makes the owner have a better experience, so they want to upgrade. I mean, it's a business model. In the end, the owner events are a business model. If the VPG was the same on an owner event as it was if they didn't take an owner event, you wouldn't have an owner event.
That's right.
Right? You wouldn't do it. But it wouldn't make financial sense. You couldn't do it. So, but it's yes, it's sales focused, but it's member focused too. It's a win-win, and that's why it's successful, because the member's getting something great out of it. They're getting an experience that lasts more than just staying in a 2-bedroom suite. They're getting the 2-bedroom suite, plus they're at the Stanley Cup, or they're at these great events. They're at a baseball game, and those are what your memories are tied to. They're tied to events and trigger points that happen in your life. And that's what they're doing well. And that's why they're getting the sales.
Well, I've been fortunate to be in a few events, not the F1. I've done the F1 with my son because we're both big fans. But at golf tournaments with the Wyndham and with the Hilton, got to do it. Talking to the members that are there attending not just the event of the golf, but there's concerts. And I think Paris Hilton was at one of them last couple of years I was at. Too funny with the pink poodle, just kind of whatever. But talking to the owners, we're proud. We're members.
That's right.
And they say with pride, we're members. And that is very comforting. So I want to finish off a little bit give you a little bit of a case study, and I'll put you on the spot a bit.
Okay.
You've got your 70-year-old. You got one sitting in front of you. You've got your 50-year-old, which is still working really hard.
Okay.
Kids are just about finished college. They're basically getting close to that. Think of retirement, mortgage probably paid off by then, 50. Then you got your 30-year-old that started the industry, started to, build a career, got a mortgage up to here, kids in school, not sure how to handle a 14 or a 12 or 5-year-old kid. Different expectations, obviously. Totally. The new generation versus the older generation, what's the shift? When you go in after sales engagement call with these people, what are they telling you on the new generation? Because the 70, 80, 90, eventually we just evaporate or something.
Yeah.
But the 30, which is our future market, and we know our industry grows on a yearly basis. That you can't ignore. So we do have double-digit growth on pretty well on an annual basis. We're, in the States alone last year did a little over $8 billion, I believe. There's $6 billion in Mexico, of which $900 million were from Canadian consumers, and amazing. That's why we're getting a lot of support from Mexican properties are saying we want to be represented by, engaged with the Canadian Association because of our Canadian consumers. But it's shifting because we've got to learn how to sell the 30-year-old because that's our future, not the 70-year-old to retain. Right. So how do you find a different conversation as a go when it comes time to dealing with these different age groups?
It's great. What we're noticing a trend in, we're seeing that tours, experiences are something that is picking up. People that can go into Ireland and, go see the Northern Lights, spend 2 or 3 days there, and they're willing to fly over, and they have all these points because this is a big thing now, right? Mm-hmm. They're able to use their points for airfare, whether they're flying business or coach. This is something that's all over the internet now, right? Everybody's an expert, right, in how to move your points nowadays on Instagram. Tours is something. I think a 30-year-old, you have that generation. They're more. They want flexibility. They want to do things on their own. They want instant gratification because everything's so fast, right? For that age group, and even faster for the 21-year-olds, 30-year-olds. The 50-year-old, more stable. What I see is an opportunity here, and I hope that it's presented that way. If this was the case study and we were sitting in front of it now. When you start in a sales presentation, obviously you start at the highest price and you work your way down, right? It's the only way you can. No one's going to join at the chairman level unless you show the chairman level, which is fine, right? You have to show your best, right? This is what we have, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's business. But what happens is the 50-year-old and 55, 60-year-old who really needs maybe a middle level package to be able to get that 2-bedroom, the kids are older. What happens is that first time they settle in and they buy something that they think does more. And they might, there's that area that's there. And I think that we have the travel club part of it that we talk about, these white labels. These are good, right? These opportunities for them. I look at it as some of these big brands. Like I look at Marriott, look at Hilton, all these things like that. If those points are not designed to be moved into hotels, right? They're not designed that way to flip over for value wise, right? They are designed to move in, but you don't do that. I think offering a product that gives them the opportunity to be able to grab 2 nights here in Dallas, 3 nights here, and utilize cash discounts and stuff at a cheaper rate that they understand and get is a really good thing. And I think that 30-year-old, they're going to grasp onto something like that more than, the week and everything. And then as they get older, their values are going to change. But it's important and the bottom line is it's important that the client understands what they're actually purchasing. And I think that has to happen on the table. And we see it every day. And I mean every day. I tell you, every day I have phone calls that will come in with clients that believe that they have something else than what they own. And it's unfortunate that happens, right? And sometimes it's selective hearing, right? We're not blaming that it's always this negative thing, because there's a lot of positive that comes out of it too as well. But I think we should address those things.
Is there a need? Like, I looked at a generation, let's say on the baby boomers, what seemed to attract them to the industry was a guaranteed spot to go vacation on a yearly basis. And some people use it on their yearly all the time. There's some resorts I know in Canada, for instance, that their owner usage is way ahead of exchanges. They basically have set up their program so that their members come back at their resort and enjoy the resort, and they get a chance, obviously, to get an extra week, extra points, or whatever it may be. But from the new generation, especially, I'm not sure if the X, Z, Z, W, whatever, because it changes all the time.
Right.
But the new generation now seems that flexibility, ease of use, don't lock me in, short term is more attractive to them versus the long term whatnot. Because I know when I first got involved in the industry, I thought, you own something you can pass on to your kids. Excellent. My grandfather thought that he would build a cottage and all his kids would go and share that cottage for the rest of their lives, which obviously doesn't happen, So that guaranteed doesn't seem to be as attractive for the new generation. So when you do talk to them on after sales, are they still focusing on that flexibility on that, or are they really concerned as far as the dollar value or the savings, or you see a shift on the dollar? Because at my age, you get a little concerned about the dollars. You got X amount of dollars, and you want to make sure it lasts and gives you the experiences that you want to. And at one stage of your life, you have to give up on the private jet, and you say, well, okay, that's just not going to happen.
Right.
But I want to have the comfort, the house, that this, being able to visit my children and enjoy this. So my needs have changed since I was 30 years old as far as the travel. So when you talk to them and after a sales process, do you see a big shift in the discussion or the demand on the younger generation than you see on?
Yes, it's almost the older generation. Well, the older, we'll just say 50s, 60s, are focused on the destinations. The younger generation's focused on the value of the actual cost. And when I mean focused on it, if they spent $5,000, they're looking for an ROI in 2 years, in one shot. And they want to, how fast am I going to get my money back? How fast am I going to be able to do that? Now, the generation, people in the 60s, that bought the timeshare and stuff like that, they obviously want to get the value out of it. It's there, but their number one primary focus is get me to where I want to go. Get me to that destination. If I want to go here, my membership needs to get me here. And if it doesn't get me there, then I'm not happy. Right? Because they're at a point in life to where they've made the financial commitment. And for them right now, they want to enjoy. They don't want to be told no. They just want to go online and be able to book. And that's the way it's presented to them. But definitely financially focused across the board, heavier on the younger generation side, and also even the travel club side. Not so much on the timeshare side. It is, but it's more maintenance fee driven, right? The purchase price is there, but where they start to have issues is maintenance fee. That's the value of it. So availability, location, and financial.
Well, your input has been extremely valuable for a couple of reasons, and I thank you. You've just educated us in a lot of ways. We think we do a good job, but the consumer at the end, when you talk to them after the fact, after the sales process, tells us if we've done a good job. And I think there needs to be a bit more focused on that after sales process, that the process doesn't stop at when the contract is signed and you get your deposit and get on to the next one. That has to change in some ways. So I think there's lots to be said. And I think what I'd like to cover next time we meet is, where does the industry need to change? Where's the shifts going to happen? And how are, because the big brands still lead the change within the industry because they are the giants out there. I mean, if you look at the number of resorts that are involved with Marriott alone right now, what is the number approximately locations they've got in their clubs?
Oh my God! I mean, well, now with the Westin merger, I mean, originally 64. Now they have all the additions and stuff. You're at over 100 properties.
There we go.
You know, they have their own internal exchange.
Yeah.
Right, that they're using inside of it, which is great.
Yeah.
Right. That's what the owners are buying. That's the value of that, being able to stay at a Marriott property in those beautiful suites.
But the scorecard at the end still comes to the consumer, that after they leave the process, I leave the resorts to go talk to their friends, go talk to the neighbors, and talk to whatnot, is what will hopefully see a shift in our lifetime, that this is a product that's being sought versus a product that needs to be sold. Fair enough?
That's a great way to end it. Great quote.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Jonathan.
Gaetan.
It was great having you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
So we'll come back to you. Thank you for staying with us, and we'll come back to you with another episode of interviews with the Canadian Resort Association. My name is Gaetan Babin. I thank you for listening.